to Dorothee Boulanger, who joins us from Oxford. She's a fellow at Jesus College at the University of Oxford. Dorothee, thank you so much indeed for your time. First of all, tell us about what Brazil was like 20 years ago and how it's changed since Lula first became president.
So when Lula first became president, the challenges were huge, but he brought an incredible hope to the country. He had these very ambitious social programs that lifted tens of millions of Brazilians out of poverty. And he made Brazil a giant as well on the international scene, which, was symbolized by Brazil then organizing the Olympic Games or the World Cup. So Lula managed to really make Brazil a kind of prominent power and was a hope, if you want, for leftist forces. Now, today, Brazil is an incredibly polarized country, very deeply divided, with people who do not talk to one another anymore, who do not understand each other anymore. And this is really the impact of the disillusion towards the PT and its corruption, but also, the very divisive policies of Bolsonaro.
It's interesting. It reminds me of Chile in the early 1990s when Augusto Pinochet, the dictator, stepped down. A leftist just couldn't have a social interaction with someone from the right wing. What do you make of his, he says his number one aim, his main aim is to end hunger in Brazil. How urgent is that challenge and how big is the problem?
It is a huge issue. Brazil has been very severely impacted by the pandemic, which has disorganized many of the country's infrastructures, and Bolsonaro's policies until this election, when suddenly he became, he spent a lot. Jair's policies were much more in favor of big business than the poor. He has a very, tough attitude that basically says that people need to lift themselves out of poverty by themselves. So it is a major social issue, but I would say it's not the only one. There is definitely a sense of emergency regarding the Amazon. There is also a sense of emergency towards reconciling the Brazilian people. So basically, Lula's social agenda will also have to take into account environmental concerns and the deep divisions that plague the country at the moment.
He's also talked a lot about peace, democracy, dignity, saying there's no such thing as two Brazils. He wants to end racism. I need your expertise here, Dorothee, because I don't know the ethnicity of Lula or Dilma Rousseff, the other Workers' Party president. But I do believe, apart from those two, that every single president in Brazil's history has been of white European descent.
Absolutely. I mean, it does say something, doesn't it, that a country that has, a majority of its population really that is non-white, and that is settled on lands that are indigenous lands to begin with, Latin America and Brazil, has been governed and is still governed today by a white minority, really. It is done through democratic means, it's not a brutal apartheid or white minority regime, but it still shows how, deeply these inequalities inherited from colonialism and slavery still run through Brazilian society today.
What do we expect of the Trump of the tropics? Do you think he's going to launch a legal challenge? I mean, this is such a close result.
Absolutely. I mean, the closeness of this result, as you know, the Bolsonaro camp was bolstered by the results of the first round. They didn't think they would do so well. So yes, everyone is waiting for Bolsonaro's reaction. He's probably been spending the night on phone calls with his various, partners and allies. We're all waiting and are just hoping for the best. But things are not settled yet. Lula will only take power in January, and these coming months will also be very important.
They're going to be very interesting indeed. Dorothee, thank you so much indeed for sharing your expertise. Dorothee Boulanger from Oxford University.
Thank you.